Good morning and welcome. I'm Jean Roman, and this is for Dragonflies and Me. Thanks so much for joining me here for another episode of Gardening 101. So, today I'm super excited to talk to you about succession planting. And you may be wondering, oh, what's succession planting? Well, that's what we're going to I'm going to talk to you about today. And it is a technique on how to extend your growing season and get more bang for your buck in your garden. So, as always, when I do these episodes, I create beautiful PowerPoints with beautiful pictures from my gardens, and I share that information with you. And so I do a lot of reading from the PowerPoint, but then I do a lot of interjecting as well. So I just kind of want to make sure if this is your first time joining me here, you're aware of what we're going to do. So first things first, I am going to share my screen with you. So let me get up there. There it is, share, and let's put it into a slideshow. There we go. All right, so welcome again to For Dragonflies and Me, tips and tricks for the home and garden. Oh, and of course, there we go. So again, welcome. Today's topic again is Gardening 101, maximizing your garden's yield, the benefits and techniques of succession planting. Sometimes this computer. Anyways, so again, some of you may be wondering, what exactly is succession planting? And, how do I incorporate that? And it's a very simple answer. Succession planting is basically the following of one crop with another and is the most important tool for maximizing your garden's yield. So throughout the winter, I know if you're like me, any gardener, we just long for the warm season to where we can start playing in the dirt. And if you have a greenhouse or whether you like to go to greenhouses, the smell of plants, excuse me, allergies, the smell of plants. And if you're a gardener, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the it's like the first lawn mowing, the smelling of that fresh cut grass, or what the air smells like after a really heavy rain. It's like this romantic aroma, and that is the way I feel every time I walk in a greenhouse, or not my greenhouse, or just going out to the garden. It's just everything becomes alive in the spring when the flowering trees start to blossom out, and your gardens and then your vegetables. It's like I said, it's just romantic to me. But some of you may have wondered, how other of your gardening friends always have fresh produce when your garden seems to have given up the ghost. Or if you're a regular to a farmer's market like I am, how do these vendors have all this fresh lettuce all season and yours turns bitter and bolts, or spinach and kale and all these other crops? Well, what you may not know is their secret. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to share with you, I'm going to give you their secret. And that is called succession planting. And it's super easy to incorporate into your gardening technique. So there is, today I want to talk to you about the benefits and techniques of succession planting and what this method can do for you to maximize your garden's yield and enjoy a steady supply of fruits and herbs and veggies throughout the growing season. So in today's episode, I'm going to teach you all about the benefits of succession planting, including the increased productivity and reduced waste. And when you think about reduced waste, you might be thinking, well, what am I wasting? Well, if you've ever gardened before, you may know it's like if you plant everything all at once, you have 25 heads of lettuce that are all coming, that are all developing and are ready to harvest at the same time. Well, you don't want to do that. Or spinach or kale or other, like even green beans. You can get a few plantings of green beans throughout the season. So I'm going to discuss the different techniques and strategies you can use to implement this method successfully. So whether you're a newbie or a seasoned gardener, you are going to discover how to make the most of your garden with succession planting. So let's roll. Yummy spinach. So again, let's just go into a little bit more detail of what succession planting is. It is the practice of sowing a new crop in the same space. That's the key, friends. Same space as a previous crop that has been harvested. This method allows gardeners to make the most of their growing space and extend their growing and their harvest season. So instead of planting, like I said, all of the crops at the same time, you want to stagger them. And succession planting involves staggering your plantings so that you always have a fresh crop ready to harvest. And by using this technique, you can maximize your garden's yield and enjoy fresh produce throughout the growing season. And this is what farmers market vendors do. This is what I used to do when I had a farm. And depending on how much space you have, again, if you don't have a huge garden, you can still do this. And if you have a larger garden, you can definitely do this, even with larger crops like sweet corn. Sweet corn, if you get a short day, oops, sorry about that. If you guys have a short day corn, you can get a couple plantings. And it's a matter of sowing a few rows of sweet corn, letting it get to a certain growth, like a certain height and development, then sowing another few rows of corn and then another few rows of corn. You can get, depending on the type of sweet corn you're using, 3 plantings, including your green beans as well. You can do a spring and a fall harvest planting of peas, of broccoli. So there are so many ways to extend your growing season and increase your yield of produce by using succession planting. So by using this technique, you are going to maximize your garden's yield and enjoy produce throughout the growing season. So what are the benefits? There are multiple. So let's talk about a few of them. One of the most significant is the advantage of increased productivity. And I kind of just explained that. By planting a new crop as soon as the other crop I'm so sorry. If you're planting your crop, before the previous one, you can make the most of your garden's growing season and maximize your yield. This method also helps to reduce waste, as you are less likely to end up with a surplus of ripe produce that you can't use before it spoils. And that's what I was just talking about. If you're starting seeds, lettuce seeds, spinach, kale, you want to think about how many heads of lettuce am I going to eat in 4 weeks? Because you can kind of stagger. You can also do lettuce as cut and come again. So by harvesting the outer leaves and letting it continue to grow, that's another way. But thinking about, okay, I want to start my lettuce seeds in March in zone 5, and then I'm going to be ready to transplant those out in middle of April because they are a cold tolerant crop. And then, so I started my first seeds in end of February, beginning of March. Okay, so now I want to start another set of seedlings 4 weeks out. So I planted, we'll just say a date. I sow my first lettuce seeds March 15th. Then I sow another on April 15th. And then another on May 15th. But thinking again, lettuce does not like heat. I talked to you guys before about types of lettuces. And for your summer lettuces, you want to use a variety called Jericho. There are others, but Jericho is a big, beautiful romaine that is heat tolerant, hence its name. It was developed in the country Jericho. So another benefit of succession planting is that it can help you avoid pest and disease problems. When you plant all of your crops at once, you are more likely to attract pests and diseases that can decimate your whole garden. By staggering your plantings, you can reduce the risk of infestations and keep your garden healthy and productive. So, again, I'm always telling you guys, be sure to be checking your plants, looking underneath the leaves, because that's where the bad bugs lay their eggs. If you see holes in your leaves, you know that you have some moths or other bugs, caterpillars that are on your leaves, potato bugs, depending on whatever it is. Look for holes in your leaves. And if you're seeing that in your plants' leaves, you want to look on the underside of your leaf because that's where the bugs lay their eggs. And certain bugs are little gold beads. And if you're not sure, you know what? Take a picture of it and email me. Send me a message and I will help you identify it. But there are apps on your phones now where you can take a picture of something like a diseased plant or a type of plant and it will identify it for you. But I'm here for anybody who has any questions. You can always email me or message me at my blog at fordragonfliesandme.com. So lots of great information. But Being careful to, remove any damaged plants as well. Removing those leaves that have the eggs and crushing them, and then disposing of them is key. You don't want to leave those in your garden. And you really want to think about using any type of organic pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. There are plenty of them out there, as including fertilizers. I happen to use either Alaska or Neptune's Harvest for your fish emulsion, but there are all kinds of good organic aids that can help you with those. And there's also natural ways to do it. One thing for potato bugs is if you have like a sifter, get some organic white flour and sift flour over your potato plants. I used to do this all the time. And what happens is the potato bugs eat the leaves and the flour gums them up, and it kind of like makes them get bound up and implode. So wonderful tool, simple white flour. And isn't that just a beautiful? That was a picture I took. The flowers are the nasturtiums, and I was making a salad. At the bottom, you can see my lemon cucumber and then a beautiful lettuce and some heirloom tomatoes. I just love the growing season. But let's talk about a few more techniques and benefits. So there are several techniques you can use to implement succession planting in your garden. One method is to use fast maturing crops that you can harvest quickly and replace with a new crop. For example, you can plant lettuce, which matures in about 30 days, and follow it with a crop of radishes, which can be harvested in as little as 3 weeks. And this allows you to make the most of your growing space, and extend your harvest season. Another thing you can do with this is like in my raised beds, and I'll be showing you guys this stuff in in live reels on Instagram and Facebook, and of course in pictures. But what I've done is I will plant a row of lettuces, seedlings, not seeds, seedlings, and then I'll plant my row of radishes. And so I'll use the cut and come again method of my lettuces, where I'm not letting it develop into a full head, but I'll be harvesting the leaves, and then I can harvest my radishes. You can do this with beets, and you can do this with short day carrots. If you want to have, there are like, it's called little finger. It's a baby carrot. It's the best. And then there's also Parisian, which is a round, it almost looks like a golf ball. It's a little carrot. And I've showed you these things on my blog and my social media platforms as well. But key, look at the days to maturation. Can you start that seed indoors and get ahead of the game with a transplant as opposed to direct sowing your seed in your garden? So these are all factors you want to consider. And if you're a newbie to gardening, I know this may sound, oh my gosh, this is so much information, but it really is easy, and you can get growing charts. But as long as you are watching your days to maturation and do a garden plan, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But if you missed I think I did that as a YouTube or I'm pretty sure it was a YouTube. I know it was a blog for sure. But planning your garden now, Google. You can search that on my. Excuse me, guys. My allergies. Oh my goodness. You can definitely go to my blog for dragonfliesandme.com, and in the search bar, just search garden planning, and there'll be a few episodes or a few blogs on that and how to develop your own garden plan, and thinking and utilizing those maturation dates and days to germination will help you get the best. And if it's your first time doing it, you're gonna make some mistakes, and that's okay. And you may be like, oh my gosh, I didn't use this. Give it to your neighbors, give it to your family, give it to your coworkers. You're going to be able to utilize it. But it's a matter of trial and error, just like anything else. But you can avoid a lot of wasted produce and time, because gardening is time. By following those maturation dates on the seed packet. But another technique is to plant your crops that have different, again, maturation times. For example, you could plant a determinate tomato variety, which takes about 70 days. And those are usually your cherries. You're not going to get a beefsteak in 70 days. And follow them with a crop of beans, which mature in about 60 days. So this allows you to make the most of your growing space and extend your harvest season again. So thinking about this, and I'm going to be showing you guys pictures of when, if you guys have been following me, you saw how I made my garden trellises in my raised beds. So when I plant my tomatoes at the base there is a space between the dirt and the bottom bamboo, and then the center bamboo and the top bamboo. Well, I'm going to have a garden twine coming up from the center, where I'm going to have my tomato plant growing up it. But that first section I'll be taking the leaves off of that tomato plant. So I'm going to have that empty space. So by growing carrots, lettuces, onions, green beans below that, I'm going to have that space. And so that's another way to succession plant and to utilize your space more effectively. So thinking about that, but again, it's all about those maturation dates. I'm going to step back 1 second too. So with tomatoes, you can do succession planting with tomatoes, but not with an indeterminate. I mean, I guess you can do anything you want. You can try it, but for the most success, you're going to want to choose a determinate tomato type. And if I did a blog, maybe a YouTube video on the difference between indeterminate and determinate tomatoes. A determinate tomato is generally a bush type tomato, not a vining type, and it is going to be set its fruit. So when a tomato plant sets all of its blossoms, those are its fruit. So that's where the tomatoes are going to grow from. And you're going to get one big harvest. So sometimes with tomatoes, you actually are better off using indeterminate if you want to incorporate succession planting, because you're getting a continual supply rather than one big development of tomatoes. So think about that as well. Definitely, I encourage you to check out my blog there on determinate and indeterminate, because there's some key things there that I don't have the time to get into that here. But choosing the right plants for succession planting, which is what we're going to talk about now. So you want to consider the growth habits and maturation times. That's going to be key here. You want to choose crops that will not compete with each other for resources, that will mature at different times. Some good crops for succession planting include lettuce, radishes, carrots, beets, beans, peas, and cherry tomatoes. These crops have different maturation times, and you'll be able to get the most bang for your buck, the most development for your plants there. Oops. I'm not quite sure why that doesn't want to go. Sorry, friends. There we go. So timing, and we've talked about that. So when I mentioned about sowing seeds indoors for the beginning of the season, this is something you definitely want to consider when you're considering the timing for your succession planting, because that is the key. You want to make sure that your plant crops at the right time to ensure that they mature at different times. So this requires, again, careful planning and attention to detail. You can use a planting calendar, like I mentioned, to help you keep track of when to plant each crop and when to harvest them. This will help you to make the most of your growing season and extend your harvest season. So again, this is what I was talking about, where if you're going to start some crops indoor, you can do that with lettuces, you can do it with spinach, you can do it with any type of green, kale and whatnot. Beans, I know you can buy bean seedlings. Bean seedlings do not transplant well. They will be stunted. You can try, like I said, you can do anything you want. I try here to give you information that is going to make you most successful in your gardening. But you shouldn't be planting your tomatoes out in April, especially if you're in zone 4 or 5. But thinking about the timing is key. So if you have a space inside that you can start your seeds, that is great. If you want to do like a succession planting of green beans, well, you want to plant them late May. And then once those develop and you see all your seedlings come up, wait till they get about 6 inches. So maybe like 4 weeks. 4 weeks is always a good amount of time to wait for your next planting with succession planting. So you got 3 rows of green beans, and 4 weeks later, you're gonna plant another row of 3 rows of green beans, and then a third planting. And this is gonna give you beans throughout the growing season. And you're going to be able to stagger the harvesting so you're not bombarded with, instead of 9 rows of green beans where they're all coming at the same time. And unless you're going to freeze them or can them, which you want to do, you want to think about what you're going to do with your produce as well. Are you canning it? Are you freezing it? Are you just wanting it to pick a few green beans for a meal tonight and maybe another night? So thinking again, that all has to do with your garden planning. Your planning is key to success again. So I know you guys hear me talking about companion planting all the time, and companion planting and succession planting go hand in hand as well. You can also go to my blog and search for companion planting. There is a plethora of information there with really a lot of details on what to plant with what and what not to plant with what. But this book by Louise Riot, Carrots Love Tomatoes, is, I have said it a million times and I'll say it a million more, I'm sure, is a gardener's best friend. This is a gardener's Bible. So what is companion planting? Companion planting is a technique that involves planting different crops together that benefit each other. This technique can be used in conjunction with succession planting to help maximize your garden's yield. For example, you can plant beans and corn together. As the beans will fix nitrogen in the soil while corn takes nitrogen out, and corn needs to grow. So another example is planting herbs like basil and parsley with your tomatoes, as they can repel pests and improve the flavor of your tomatoes. Also carrots, and you want to plant those, and onions and garlic. Those are things that all can grow together and benefit one another and work with succession planting. So there's my garden plan that I have been talking about. I did this blog where you guys can go and see. Excuse me, folks. I'm going to take a drink of my water here. My allergy pill has not kicked in yet. But now that we kind of went over some benefits and the techniques and timing and whatnot, let's talk about, I want to give you a few tips for success. And so garden planning is going to be one of the first things that you're going to need to do. So I start garden planning in December, and it's not too late. Don't think, oh, I don't have time to do this. You still have time. This is going to take you maybe a couple hours. You know, if you're an experienced gardener, it's going to take you a couple hours. If you're a novice gardener, it may take you a few more because you just want to do the research. And you want to, again, look at those maturation dates and when to plant and what goes well together. So whether or not you have a big tillable garden, a raised bed garden, or just do a few things in containers, you can still have produce throughout the growing season. So again, first, make sure to plan ahead and choose the crops that will mature at different times. Next, you want to stagger your planting so that you always have a fresh crop ready to harvest. Third, use companion planting to help maximize your garden's yield. Next, keep your garden healthy and free with pests and disease by practicing good garden hygiene. So that's taking out any disease plants, utilizing organic management techniques. And finally, harvesting your crops regularly to encourage new growth and to help prevent waste. This is really important with all crops, especially like beans, any herbs. It's super important to continually harvest herbs. And if you don't need them right away, dry them. It's super easy. I'm going to be doing a blog and a YouTube on how to dry your herbs. So thinking again, you know, making sure that garden plan's your first step, and that is your key. So what are a few mistakes? You know, we got all the icing on the cake now. Let's talk about what potential, bad things to happen if you you may make some mistakes, which is okay. I still make mistakes. So what are those? One is, the most common is planting too much of one crop at a time, which can lead to a surplus of ripe produce that you just can't possibly use. And so there's ways to deal with that. Of course, you got your neighbor or your friends, your coworkers, your family members. And, I'm sure all of us at the office or at somewhere have gotten a bag of zucchini, right? Well, people get so ambitious, and I'm going to tell you something that probably won't be very popular. I know if you're not growing your own, if you're not starting your own seeds and you're going to a nursery or garden center, you're probably buying a 4-pack, 3-pack of zucchini, peppers, and whatnot. Unless you are planning on just making zucchini bread and zucchini muffins and zucchini everything, you don't need 4 zucchini plants. I have, for my family, 1 zucchini plant. That's it. It is in one of my raised beds, one of my containers, and that baby is going to give me more zucchini than we can probably eat. But I'm going to shred some, which I'm excited about, and I'm going to shred that. I'm going to put it in freezer bags so that I can make something in the winter. But I don't need 4 zucchini plants. Pepper plants, I need 4 plants. But do you need 4 pepper plants? Are you going to be able to? I'm gonna harvest out my peppers, and I'm actually putting in about 12 green pepper plants. Um, and I'm going to harvest them, and then I'm going to cut them 2 ways. I'm going to cut them in like little, like dicing, and I'm going to put those in 1 cup measures and freeze them. So when I make chili, I don't have to buy peppers in the winter. And then I'm going to do some in slices for fajitas. I'm going to freeze those, so I don't have to buy peppers in the winter. Are you going to do that? Think about your time. Think about what you want to do. Think about how you're going to store it. I have 3 freezers, 2 fridges and 2 freezers, excuse me, a chest and a stand up. I used to have 3. I used to have 5 really, but anyways. So think about what you're going to do with your produce. How much do you need? Again, when I was talking about earlier, planting lettuces, if you're going to start your seeds and you want to have, if you want to have a salad every day, then yeah, plant about a dozen lettuces at one time, then stagger it, plant another dozen, and then stagger it, plant another dozen. Think about the long game. Think about what is at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel when all this stuff matures. Do you have time to can? Do you have time to freeze? Do you even want to? Again, you can always give stuff away. People are always happy to get that. But it is your time, it is your space. Utilizing your space most effectively to get what you need is key. So you don't want to grow things and just have to throw them away. If you have chickens, if you have a farm, your chickens, your hogs, whatever, yeah, they're going to eat it. It's not going to go to waste. It's less feed you have to buy, and it's healthy and wonderful for them. But not everybody has pigs and chickens. So think about that. So another mistake is not timing your plantings correctly, which can result in, again, all of your crops maturing at the same time. So it kind of goes with the first one. So think about that. Think about how much you're planting, how much you're going to eat, how big is your family, are you really going to cook? And that's another thing. It's like, I've told you guys, we do a monthly menu to where we cook every day. I make all kinds of videos for you guys, but there are some days when we're out there and we've busted our butts filling the raised beds, and you know what, I am not in the mood to cook. Dave is not in the mood to cook, and it's a pizza night. And so, obviously that's now. And in the summertime, if I spend an entire day making marinara sauce, we're probably having spaghetti. So, and a salad. But just think about what is practical. And I know it's like, oh, but I want to grow this. Believe me, I live and breathe plants, gardening, being in the dirt. It is my absolute passion. But over the years, you get more practical. And so just a friendly suggestion, think about what you're going to use. So finally, failing to practice good garden hygiene can lead to pest and disease problems and can decimate your garden. I know I said that, but it is awful when you see your beautiful cucumber plants or your pickle plants that you were planning to do all these beautiful jars of pickles for your family, and it gets powdery mildew or it gets cucumber beetles, and they are just destroying your plants. So thinking about watching your garden, watching your plants, looking at the leaves. Preventative medicine is the best medicine. So preventative maintenance is the best maintenance, and it will protect your garden and give you a much more delightful gardening season. So as you can clearly see, succession planting is a valuable technique that can help you maximize your garden's yield and extend your harvest season. So by using this method, you can make the most of your growing space and enjoy fresh produce throughout the year. So whether you're a seasoned gardener or you're just a newbie, succession planting is a technique that's worth exploring. And with careful planning and attention to detail, you can create a garden that is both productive and sustainable. So why not give it a try and see for yourself how succession planting can benefit your garden? Well, as always, friends, I certainly hope I've encouraged you to grow your own food. But don't be dismayed if you don't have a big yard to garden in, or you can always do container gardenings or raised bed gardenings. Even one raised bed, even a couple pots of tomatoes is better than nothing. But as always, be sure, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, follow, and leave me a comment. I love your feedback. Do you practice succession planting? What have you found that works? What have you found that doesn't work? I love to hear back from you guys, because I'm not here to say I know it all. We gardeners, we share with each other. I listen to other gardeners because I can always glean information from somebody else. And like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Or I've never tried that. Let's try that. And so I love your feedback. I really do. I love when you guys tell me, well, I did this and it worked, or I did that, Gene, and it did not work. Save yourself the grief. So I appreciate that. And as always, if you're not following me on Facebook or Instagram, go on over, check it out. I have great content there every day. I do live reels, I do Facebook lives. I have daily content there that you definitely don't want to miss out on. So to see, and then I also want to let you guys know, if you'd like to see a more concise list of the companion plants, head over to my blog. And again, just search in the search bar for companion plants. And I've got some great articles there that you guys can pick up. So it's at fordragonfliesandme.com. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a beat. Daily blogs, daily YouTubes, almost every day. I try to get content out there for you every day because I really do appreciate you guys being here with me. So thanks so much for joining me today. And if you enjoyed this class, this episode, this blog, be sure to visit me on my podcast. I do weekly podcasts. I talk to incredible experts in fields of gardening, cooking, female entrepreneurship, small business. You don't want to miss out. And you can go to my social media platforms for daily inspiration for the home and garden. So like I always say, friends, thank you for being here. I do appreciate your support. I'm really trying to grow my YouTube channel. So if you guys would be so kind to subscribe and share, be sure to smash the like button. YouTube has some crazy algorithms, and the more people comment, the more people like, the more people subscribe, it gets my content out into other avenues. I'm going to be having a challenge on my YouTube channel to win a free copy of my cookbook. So if you want more information on my cookbook, Lovingly Seasoned Eats and Treats, you can go to my blog at fordragonfliesandme.com to see that. You can purchase it in a beautiful soft cover edition or a downloadable PDF. So, like I always say, friends, thank you so much for joining me here. And be sure to eat fresh, shop local, and have a happy day. Talk to you soon, and see you in the garden.